I see lots of folks joining, and they'll continue to trickle in here, and appreciate my co-hosts for helping admit them as we go here. Awesome. Hi, Jung. Hi, Henry. Hi, Tom. Mary Beth. And Jessica and Garrett. Wonderful to see you all. So welcome, everyone. Hi. We're going to get started. My name is Abba Kaiser. I know most of you, but for those of you who I haven't met, I'm the Food Systems Project Manager, and I've been helping to steward the Cascadia Grains Initiative for the past 6 years. And before we get started, I just want to acknowledge the land that I'm standing on. This is Walter McQuillan, also known as Cluathel, who's the Makah chief, also becoming a dear friend of mine. And he continues to be the cultural steward of the Makah peoples who lived on the land where I'm at, here on the peninsula, Olympic Peninsula, along with the Sklallam and the Chimicum peoples as well. So a big thank you to Walter and his family for being so generous. We are going to quickly move into our agenda for today. I'm going to give a brief overview of the local grain movement nationally and what Cascadia Grains has done in the past 8 years. And then we're going to hear a brief update from Mercy Karayuki McGee of the Hockey Farmers Collective, who we've been working with collaboratively on a research project to examine BIPOC staple crop production within culturally specific foods. Just so everybody knows, we are broadcasting live on YouTube. Just to create a little bit more accessibility for the call. Hi, Amy. Hi, Jason. Welcome.
Hello.
And then we're going to be moving into our featured speakers. We have Catherine Curley from the Community Loaves Project, as well as Emily Squadra from Wildflower Baking, who are going to share their community-based initiatives that they've implemented during COVID to bring people together around access and community grains. Then we're going to be moving into breakout rooms if needed, depending on how many folks are showing up here today, so that you all can talk to each other about the things that you have going on and share your updates as well. We'll come back together and do a brief wrap up before the end of the hour, so buckle up. Here we go. Just a brief overview. As I mentioned, my name is Abba Kaiser. I'm the project manager of the Cascadia Grains Initiative and the WSU Food Systems Program. I work under Laura Lewis, who's also on the call today. We've been working with this initiative for the past 8 years to bring together folks from across the Northwest to center around the regional grain economy. We also work with our colleague, Nicole Witham, who's not here with us today. She's on leave, but she has been a very important player as well in the work that we've been doing. So just a brief overview of the conference. I was born in 2013 out of a risk management grant and a collaboration with the Bread Lab in Thurston County Extension to bring together folks across the value chain for regional grains in the Northwest. And 8 years, nearly 3,000 attendees and 200 classes later, here we are, really pivoting into more of an initiative rather than just an event. Here are some of the constituents that we see to typically attend our events. Mostly bakers, professional and home bakers. We call them SHB. I see Mel Derbyshire joining the call now, which is really exciting. We also have brewers, distillers, maltsters, millers, folks from across the value chain who touch regional grains in their own way. And we continue to see the initiative growing. We also see a lot of farmers coming to the table, which is really important to the work that we do, is to center small scale, regional, sustainable farmers in the work that we do. And before COVID hit, we were able to survey our constituents, and we can see the values that came out of that survey here on the left: cultural relevance, environmentally sound practices, domestic, local, and regional markets, health and nutrition, equitable access, and taste and flavor came out as the kind of top contenders. So that's really how we try to frame all of the work that we do as the Food Systems Program and as the Cascadia Grains Initiative generally. I just want to let you know about a regional listserv that you're able to sign up for. It's a not unmoderated discussion listserv. So if you're, say, I have 10 pounds of millet and I need to offload it somewhere, you can use this listserv to connect with people across the Northwest. I want to briefly mention that we are not the only people in this space. There are many organizations across the nation who are doing regional grain value chain work. Here are just a few of them. I'm sure that there are more. And with COVID, we've been able to really collaborate with many of these folks, including on Greensweek, which is coming up. It's a free event. We're not saying it's in lieu of the Cascadia Grains Conference because it's a little bit different, but we're partnering up with this national team from the Culinary Breeding Network from Oregon State University, Cornell University, UW-Madison, eOrganic, the Artisan Grains Collaborative, and Grow NYC Grains to bring you many research updates sorry, let me see here. It seems like my screen share was not working. Apologies for that. Give me one moment here. Laura, do you want to talk about Grains Week for a second while I get this set up?
Put me on the spot there. Yeah, so Greensweek is a collaborative effort between Cornell, Oregon State University, University of Wisconsin-Madison. I think that's all of the universities, as well as a couple other community-based organizations. And as Abba was saying, it's not replacing Cascadia Grains, but it's sort of in lieu of this year to be able to really work together across the space with some of the folks that we've been able to really build relationships with over the last few years. So really excited about the program. It's really bringing together so many unique research projects, aspects of grains, cultural aspects of grains, just really excited. So I'll pass it back to you, Abba.
Thanks, Laura. You're always in my corner and always ready to bat whenever I put you on the spot. So apologies, everybody. I'm sure you get the gist of what the other slides were. We're gonna just briefly do a poll to see who is on the call here today and open up just these two questions for folks to answer and give us a little more information about who's on the call. So if you guys can fill it out. I see the poll participants coming in, very exciting. Great, we've got about 6 people left to vote. And just a few more seconds here. And just so everyone knows, we are also broadcasting live on YouTube. All right. I'm going to end the poll in another 10 seconds here if you haven't had the chance to vote. Okay, here we go. So on the poll, we can see, oh, we should have got more categories here, but you could see bakers, brewers, distillers, farmers, resource providers, government and state officials, and millers. The top folks on the call today are researchers, which is really exciting. And then we have other, and if you put other, maybe just pop in the chat and introduce yourself and talk about the sector that you represent today as part of the value chain. And then we can see also, where are you tuning in from? Most of the folks are from Washington, followed by Oregon, and then Idaho. And then again, if you're tuning in from other, please post in the chat where you're tuning in from and let us know. Great. Awesome. Thanks everyone for doing that. It's always nice to get a sense of who's in the room. And I want to pass the mic now to Mercy Kariuki McGee of the Hockey Farmers Collective. Mercy is in Olympia, Washington, and we have been working together on an initiative to look at culturally relevant staple crops within Washington State in BIPOC communities and designing a qualitative and quantitative research study that's going to be looking at how we can help grow and support the BIPOC farmers in getting access to land and resources and nutritionally relevant crops for doing the work that they are excited about and also celebrating. So I'm going to let her talk a little bit more about that, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. Mercy, if you want to take over.
Thank you, Amber, for that wonderful introduction. I'll start sharing my screen now. And let me know if you cannot see my screen. I cannot see right now because I have my panel closed up, but I will try to be, Amber, if there's any questions, feel free to stop me to answer a question.
Great.
You can post your comments, follow-up questions at the end of the call today. But I'm so glad to be here today. Again, my name is Mercy Kariuki McGee. I am a co-founder of Haki Farmers Collective. My daughter and my husband started the Haki Farmers Collective, which Haki means justice, after George Floyd's death. And we realized that the need to form a movement of farmers in the South Sound who are BIPOC. And we're very excited to be launching our first urban farm this last weekend. We had a work party that turned out about 30 volunteers who are willing to pick us up and go along in this journey of growing a BIPOC farm. But today I'm here primarily to talk to you about the research that Amber and I are doing in collaboration with Wazoo and other farmers around Washington State. We are about 15 members, member team of steering committee members who have come together to try and conduct this research so it can inform, educate, and do some outreach in bringing culturally relevant food to the community of color and international community as well. So a little bit of background about why BIPOC research is important to us, and especially in the BIPOC community. In the US, it's about 3.9 BIPOC farmers. 62% of those farmers are laborers compared to 38 farmers of white laborers. Today, there is still gaps that exist in the agricultural system that is continuing to limit access to land acquisition, farming education, and capital for small to mid-scale BIPOC farmers. The barriers limit abilities to find solutions to introduce these foods solutions for BIPOC in regional adapted staple crop markets. Despite the efforts that the USDA is trying to bring along with funding, accessibility, we are still finding these to be very, very big barriers that are holding BIPOC farmers behind. The research purpose is to conduct quantitative and qualitative needs assessment of culturally relevant staple crops with the BIPOC farmers and consumers. We want to assess the best practices. We want to develop next steps to revive regional and culturally relevant staple crop from small to mid-scale farmers. We want to aim to understand the needs of the BIPOC communities that live around Washington State and around the state and regional as well. We want to identify gaps that exist within our agricultural system. And we also want to map pathway to establish a thriving regional market for the crops. That is looking at the grains, the pseudo grains, the seed crops, the pulses, the oilseeds, and the nuts, and even probably herbs to be able to see how we can help bring those into our farming community so we can establish and make those accessible to the BIPOC community. We have come up with a design study to help us focus our work and make it more time sensitive and also be more equitable. We are using an online survey called Qualtrics platform, which Wazoo has actually been using for some of their work. And this is a wide platform that is very user-friendly, easy to use. You can design the questions the way you want, and it's easy to access. We are hoping to survey about 500 consumers, as well as some farmers as well. We are also using a photo voice and most significant change, which is a modern way of collecting data or qualitative data. And it's a very well laid out process, which uses a participatory action research method, which means you go to the people to tell to collect the data you're looking for. You use photos as a storytelling tool to inform or create social change. It has been used here as well as in Africa, South America, in India. And this process allows participants to engage with themselves and the farmers who are passionate about the way the way things they do in the farm happen. It also allows participants to have the power to shape the outcome of the research instead of the researcher shaping the outcome of the research itself. We are looking at participants both in the who are farmers as well as consumers, and we are hoping that we can actually go between the farmers and the consumers when it comes to the photo voice research method. And this allows us to be able to collect different data pieces out of this photo voice and the qualitative research as well. The resource and expected impacts. We are going to identify priorities and the next step for the regional market development. We hope to create a report and a database of staple crops that are culturally relevant for the specific BIPOC communities in Washington State. We do realize this are spread out through Washington State, so we are going to tailor make our research to each individual BIPOC community within Washington State. We want to document what current barriers farmers face in growing and processing and distributing these crops. We also want to document current barriers that exist for the consumers themselves. What is holding them back from accessing their staple relevant crop? Is it the distance? Is it the food? Is it that food is not available? Is it that the importation of this food is really high? Is it that they don't have the financial capability to afford this food? So this research is going to allow us to look at all these barriers that exist within our communities. We are going to invite participants at the end of this research to a gallery exhibition so they can access and quantify our results. They are going to help us shape the report that is going to be coming out of this report. And we are going to be looking at the photo voice that we collect, the qualitative data that comes along with it, and we are going to display that and have them take part in shaping the report that comes out of this research. We are going to outline partners to implement the recommendation that we derive from this research. That way, when we start finding the crops that can acclimate to our climate, we will have partners on the ground to start helping us grow these crops. So there is going to be a call out for those BIPOC farmers who are willing to take part in the implementation of the findings, so we can continue exploring the ways to bring this BIPOC culturally relevant food into our community. So we are hoping that you're going to keep plugged in with our work, and you're going to follow us either from Happy Farmers Collective, or you're going to follow Washington Cascadia Grain. We are going to be having a website very soon that can help you find what you're doing. We will try to keep you posted as we continue, and we hope that you're going to help us find the areas that we are missing, so we can make sure that this research touches every part of Washington State and even probably beyond Washington State. So thank you very much for having me today. I can answer any question.
Awesome. Thank you, Mercy.
I know that was quite a wrap up, but I know we have a very short time to be able to get through to the other farmers. So if you have any questions, shoot them to me or to Amber as well.
That's great. Yeah, I think there's some questions in the chat if you want to look there, Mercy, and we'll get Emily set up with her PowerPoint in the meantime. Yeah. But also, Mercy, if you want to post in the chat the way that folks can get in touch with you.
Okay, I can do that.
That would be great. Emily, do you want to go ahead and share? Thank you so much, Mercy. And we hope that folks will stay involved. We're going to continue to bring this initiative kind of with the Cascadia Grains momentum that we have as much as we can, as much as it is helpful. So you'll be hearing more from us about that. And as always, please get in touch if you have more questions. And with that, I'd like to introduce Emily Squadra of Wildflower Baking in Portland. And I'll let Emily talk a little bit more about the work that she's been doing to connect people in this time through local grains. Got you on mute, gal. Clap. Quote of the year.
Yeah. Okay. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Good. Okay. All right. Well, I know some of you guys out there, but for those of you who are new to me, my name is Emily Squadra, and I have been running Wildflower Baking since about 2017. I have been professionally baking for about 10 years, and when I moved to Portland, got really interested in the whole grain and sourdough scene here, and started Wildflower Baking. which was which was a farmers market and special order bakery focusing on whole grains and sourdough. And we held out through the summer of 2020, but at the end of the summer, it only made sense to pivot out of being a bakery and into a baking school. There was a lot of interest in people learning about sourdough and whole grains, and it just felt like the right decision for me to pivot to doing online classes. And I also wanted to strengthen community partnerships that I had built through doing different fundraisers through Wildflower Baking's career. So I created a whole series of whole grain baking classes, which people could access through Patreon. And I also post recipes and just wanted to demystify whole grains and sourdough to people. So in terms of creating more community partnerships, I wanted to just make these things more available to people. I felt like whole grains were something that wasn't available to anyone. You couldn't find them at the Fred Meyer grocery stores, for example, but also sourdough was something that not everybody had equal access to. So a teacher from a elementary school in Northeast Portland, Wrigler Elementary, reached out to me and told me about a program that he had been doing with Wrigler. And in order to fill in the gaps that families were feeling from not having school every day, they were creating these food boxes for people. And the food boxes also had little activities for the kids to do at home. A lot of these were little zines that were in Spanish, since Wrigler is the only bilingual elementary school in the Portland Public School District. So I thought it would be really fun to introduce kids to sourdough this way. We created a sourdough zine that introduced kids and their parents to sourdough. I also would give them flowers that were donated from the Portland Whole Grain Bakers Guild, which is a fun little community of whole grain bakers in Portland. And after teaching kids over Zoom sourdough and some feedback from teachers and parents, we kind of have tweaked the zine to something that's a little bit more streamlined and a little easier. So instead of making a loaf, we're doing focaccia, since you don't have to shape it. So the zine is in Spanish and English, just to be, reach those families who speak Spanish at home. And a lot of these families are also essential workers, and migrant families who not only don't necessarily speak English at home, but also don't even speak Spanish at home. So Spanish is their second language. So we wanted to kind of give them something fun to do with their families, get them in the kitchen together, and also provide resources. So let me just go back to the other slide. So they get a quarter sheet pan, a bowl, a bag of flour mix, and a sourdough starter, and then this zine that is just supposed to really, let them have fun and help them kind of hone into their intuition when making bread, and also provide, some food education to these families who have, a lot of them work in the food industry and are very competent in the kitchen, but this kind of creates a little bit of a connector with the kids. And so one of the hold on, let me just go back. So one of the most important things for me at this moment in time has been realizing the importance of food security in this country. And since 2020 has happened and the pandemic, food insecurity has shot up to 1 in 4 families experience food insecurity in 2020. And for BIPOC families, that the risk of experiencing food insecurity is doubled to their white counterparts. So addressing that and trying to create these tributaries from communities like the Whole Grain Bakers Guild in Portland or Cascadia Regional Grains, creating these tributaries and creating these sort of just connections and building relationships is incredibly important, not only in like strengthening our food systems, but also in preventing food insecurity from happening, creating like very strong local food networks that not only rely on the people that have been included the most historically, which is upper class white people, but also including families that may rely on food banks for this type of resource. So I'm just trying to make a very small dent in that and try to build connections with these communities. And I think going through the public school system is a really, really valuable way of doing that, because you can do it in a fun way, and you can do it in a way that shows these kids like maybe the knowledge that their family has that they might not talk about every day, but also gets them interested in food. I think for me, the most important thing is just creating excitement around food and making people kind of like think about it a little bit more, and you know, not necessarily like saying that you have to eat 100% whole grains all the time, but like if they're at least a little bit more interested in like what sourdough is, or like maybe they know a little bit more about like what like a white flour compared to whole grain flour is, that kind of seed is the seed that I'm looking to plant for these kids so that they can grow into something more in the future. So if you are interested in getting involved in wildflower baking school, you can join me on Patreon. I have a croissant class coming up this Saturday, and all the classes are held via Zoom and are usually on Saturdays. And if you're interested in purchasing zines for yourself, those little sourdough zines that are about like grounding into your intuition while building focaccia, you can purchase those from me. Feel free to reach out to me through Instagram. I'm at Wildflower Baking. And you can sponsor a bread kit for $9. And if you're interested in replicating a similar program near you or in an elementary school near you, please feel free to reach out. All my contact information is right down here. And Colectiva de la Comida is also taking donations on their GoFundMe page just for the work that they're constantly doing. So again, Abba, thank you so much for inviting me to the Regional Grains Call, and I'm always honored to be here. So thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Emily. That's great info. And if you want to just pop your contact in the chat as well, that's great. It seems like there's similar potential projects that Hockey is also doing. I see in the chat through North Thurston School District. And yeah, I'm really grateful that you came on the call and suggested this topic. It's really great to touch base with you and just hear more about the work that you've been doing. And everybody, please subscribe to her Patreon. Everybody sponsor a bread kit. Everybody get a zine. Do all the things. Sponsor La Colectiva. You know what to do. All right, we're going to move on to Catherine Curley of the Community Loaves Project. Catherine, you want to start sharing your screen? And if you guys have any questions for Emily, you can post in the chat, and we can continue the conversation there as we've got a full program here. Thanks everybody for bearing with us. Great, and I'd like to just now introduce Catherine Curley, who's been doing other types of community organizing work through COVID, and I'll let her share more about her pivot to community loaves and how it all came together.
Thank you, Abba. Can you hear me and can you see the screen that I have to present? Okay.
Looks
It
good.
is lovely that I know a good half of you who are on this call, which is a testament to the work that Cascadia Grains does for networking and building community all around the grain economy, up and down the chain from seed to bread, shall we say. My introduction to Cascadia Grains and to the grain economy comes from a very personal and deep love of all things bread and the very rich community that is created when people gather to talk about grains, soil, bread. It's a very happy marriage. In fact, it's so happy for me that about 3 or 4 years ago, I created a group around this affiliation called Northwest Bread Bakers. We have about 500 or so passionate bread bakers in the group. I think we're much larger now. This is a bit old, but it was a community designed to welcome and encourage collaboration in the space of whole grains, supporting local millers, local farmers, using really great flours. I hesitate to use the word artisan flowers, but just really good, fresh local flowers. I had the lovely opportunity in this journey to meet Abba and the folks at Cascadia Grains Conference, and later was on a panel at one of our live events in January, and I look forward to us resuming that. Northwest Bread Bakers is all about fostering a vibrant bread community, supporting that local grain community economy, and providing learning opportunities. And those learning opportunities span from workshops and intensives to even behind the scenes tours at Grand Central. And Mel's online. She's been a terrific ambassador and advocate for Northwest Bread Bakers. As it relates to community loaves, it's just important that you know that I had this as a backdrop as we headed into the pandemic. As we were looking down the pipeline, March, April of last year, I had a host of calendar events that all needed to be canceled because we were not going to be meeting face to face. And I had the ability to pivot on some of those, and we did workshops online. But more importantly, as it relates to community loaves, the news was just rife with the gutting of the hospitality sector, the demand on our emergency food system, and the struggles for people to have food. And a little bit to what Emily was saying, food insecurity is not new, but the effect of the pandemic on food insecurity was severe. And I was really quite troubled by that. And I know many of you here share that trouble. So one March day in 2020, I was sitting on this Cascadia Grains regional call, and lo and behold, I hear about neighbor loaves to help our local bakeries, which was very, very important. We want to support our local bakeries, but what were they going to do in this time of pandemic? And that neighbor loaves, plus other conversations that I've had with Dr. Jones at the Wazoo Bread Lab about the approachable loaf, understanding the work that Mel has done, all of that conspired to create a thought for me that maybe I had a community that could do something and that could help our food banks directly. And from that became Community Loaves, sparked by this rich network of Cascadia Grains, the work that I had done to develop a bread relationship and a grain relationship, and a real strong need to do something that might make a difference. And you know the story, I think possibly we started, I had 6 bakers help me create a master formula for our own work. I researched with the Department of Health to make sure that actually we could donate goods direct from our home-based, our quarantined bake shops, if you will. And the answer is that we can. It is approved by the Department of Health for us to do that. And I then made one phone call. Actually, it was an email / phone call to the executive director of a local food bank called Hope Link, and shared my vision of uniformity, consistency, and bringing this freshly baked whole grain bread into their supplies. And they said yes. They could have just as easily said no, but they didn't. And because they didn't, we were off. And the first donation was 19 loaves, a really rather unassuming and tiny amount, hardly a ripple in the pool. And we've now working with, and as of today, as I was talking with Lake Stevens Food Bank earlier today, we are now up to 15 food banks. The demand for food collectively at these 15 food banks is around 16,000 clients a week. It's startling. It's really high. On our best donation, we've donated 2,000 loaves for the week. So it's still a far cry from the demand that is out there. But you, like the starfish story, you can only do, one at a time. And that's what we're doing. One at a time, we are trying to get the job done. Those 19 loaves now have multiplied into a combined total donation to date of 852 loaves into the emergency food system. It's close to 40,000 pounds, which is not even a silo at Grand Central for flour. Just so you know, Mel and I have been talking about that. So it's tiny in many respects, and it is huge in other respects. We have over 850 volunteers registered with our volunteer network that help bake, drive, and break down flour into 5-pound bags, because we get our flour locally from our 2 mills in the Skagit. We get our flour from Fairhaven and from Cairn Spring. We're currently in Washington and Oregon, and we're looking to expand into Idaho. There are challenges with our model in terms of expanding. So these are things that we're trying to figure out and may or may not work. And just gives you an example of where we're at today and what we hope to accomplish. And I'd love to see us donate 45,000 loaves this year. I think that we can do it. Our loaf, what is this loaf? Like I said, we've been influenced by a number of different learnings that I've had, lovely people that I have met. I know that our food banks want an approachable, familiar loaf, something that is sandwich friendly, but Mercy's work could inform another type of loaf that we might provide down in the Thurston County food bank area as we learn more about what the individual needs of our food banks are. Of course, as a foundation, we're using one formula that we've tested and proven that tastes great, that has a high percentage of whole grains. We use 50% whole grain flour and 50% high extraction flour. We also add oatmeal for additional fiber and attractiveness to our loaves. Currently, it's supported the Northwest Bread Baker mission. This has eclipsed the work that I had been doing with Northwest Bread Bakers. So Community Loaves will be an entity all unto itself. Our loaf loaf started out as a sourdough and yeast combination, but we now give our bakers 3 formulas. We consider ourselves an equal leavening opportunity. So you can choose our yeast only formula. If you're not interested in maintaining a sourdough culture, you can choose our purist, which is the sourdough only, or the classic formula, which is the combination of sourdough and yeast. All of our loaves get packaged in a bakery bag with a twist tie, and they all have a label on them with lists the ingredients, and the ingredients are all the same, with the exception of how it's leavened. Every single one of our bakers, where they end up baking with us or not, attends an information session. And in that information session, we are educating, we take a moment to educate them on the difference in nutritional value of flours. This is the bench analysis study out of Unifying Mills that was done back in 2015 that differentiates the nutrition level between whole grain, all-purpose, and high extraction. We provide that as a foundation to the culture of community loaves so that people understand why they can't just put in their gold medal flour or whatever it is that they want to maybe substitute out. So we provide that as an anchor to the work that we're doing. We also make the flours available directly through community loaves. We purchase them wholesale from the mill. In some cases, we have to repackage that into the 5-pound bags. And in other cases, like Fairhaven, we're able to get them direct in 5-pound bags at an affordable price point. Of course, our bakers can purchase some of these flours retail, and they tend to be double or sometimes triple the price in retail. So we're getting them into the hands of the network at a more affordable price point. And this is just a note out to you all that I need to know about your flour. I would like to know about your flour. We want to make sure that we not part of being a volunteer with our project is not just the impact into the food emergency food system, but it's also the nurturing of your baking skills and your access to really great local grains and flours. We teach them along the way, and there are a lot of videos that support the project. We remind them they need to follow the formula for best success, and we give them a number of resources, and all of that is as part of the participation in the network, which is free. So how it works is that individuals sign up to attend an information session on our website. And then after they attend the information session, they decide if they want to be a member of the volunteer network, which again is free. They create a profile in that network. They watch the various videos that we have to support the process. They may do a practice bake. They order supplies. I have a monthly flour truck, and I physically drive out to all of the hubs and supply them with their orders. And again, we do that monthly. Our volunteers donate twice a month. The first and third Sundays always is the routine. It helps keeps us consistent. We recruit our friends and our neighbors and anyone who has an inkling that they might like to bake bread with us. Participation is always voluntary. So even though I have close to 900 in the volunteer network at any given time, maybe only half of them are baking and donating bread. And that's okay. We have busy lives. So we're up and down the Puget Sound corridor. We have 3 hubs in Olympia. We have 3 hubs in Bellingham. We have hubs in Bainbridge Island and Whidbey Island. We're working on one up in Port Townsend. So I'm hoping to get up there soon. And we just landed a food bank Lake Stevens. So every time, and this is a chicken and egg, every time we get a food bank that needs some bread, we can then support a hub and bakers in that geographic area to get bread in. We've got the pieces that we need to start a donation. And it is a donation. Our bakers are purchasing the flour themselves. They are giving their heart and their time and their craft into the project. And we give them a donation receipt. And actually now on our website, which is new, we went live with a website in January. You can actually see your donations in real time. And you can donate time, you can donate money, and you can donate loaves. In fact, you can even do special donations. At December, we donated cookies in addition to loaves. So we had a box of cookies, was all the same recipe, and we had a socially distanced packaging party, which means you need a great big warehouse to do that. We packaged up all those treats, and this last week, in honor of spring and in honor of Easter, we did a hot cross buns donation, and we donated 1,714, I think, hot cross buns into our food banks. So let's see, we do mostly recruit bakers, but I also have food bank liaison positions. I just created a communications committee that is helping me as we continue to grow. We have drivers and flour repackers. I have a couple of volunteers that help me with the report structure and the database for our website. And this is just a massive volunteer organization. For me, it's a massive, it might not be for any of you, but it's quite a number of people involved and moving parts. And we couldn't do it without the partnership of folks like Mel Derbyshire, who helps us get bags at a much more affordable price than we can actually purchase the bakery bags at. And it gives advice like, what would you do here? Or what do you think is happening to these loaves? And so she's been a terrific ambassador and advocate, even if she's not necessarily making these loaves. Josh Brunig has been a terrific professional baker who has contributed 70, 80 loaves at a time into giving his Sunday bake to this project. So it is a rich activity. It is one that has connected a lot of people with purpose and given them a little bit of self-preservation. If they picked up a baking habit during the COVID and they didn't want to consume it all themselves, they have a way to scratch that itch of needing to bake, which is so very therapeutic, and they have an outlet for it. Food banks like it because even though you can donate bread safely, food banks typically have a policy against home donations. They do not want 30, 40, 50, 60 people pulling in and donating their pumpkin loaf, zucchini loaf, cookies, etc. By having it organized through the hubs, by having a standard formula, by having everything labeled, it allows this to happen more organically, hub and spoke, and it's just a few cars dropping off a whole lot of dough to the food bank.
Catherine, this is great. I just want to give you a 1-minute warning because we want to pop into breakout rooms. So just, yes, thank you for sharing, and just wanted to
I appreciate that. The 1 minute is great because we're at the end. You can reach us on our website. You're invited to check in with me at any time if you have any ideas, suggestions, Facebook, social media. I'm not the world's best at social media, but I'm learning.
Oh, I would argue that you are great at social media, Catherine. Organizing all of this as a Facebook group is no small feat to begin with. And then now you're running this whole initiative. I mean, yes, lots of comments in the chat and lots of questions about when are you coming to California. A question from Mercy about ways to make it accessible for those not using the food bank system, but are struggling at some level. So maybe something for you all to connect on and discuss more. It'd be great to loop you in on some of the research that we've got going on.
Yeah, I would love that.
Round of applause for all of our presenters, virtual round of applause. And at the same time, we have just a few minutes. I think it's worth it for us to pop into breakout rooms. These are just intended for you all to get a little bit more familiar with the folks on the call and share a little bit more about your work. We'll go into them for about 7 minutes, and then we'll pop back out just for a real quick recap, but just so you can get a chance to talk and share your story. And I have to say, I'm really jealous of some of these rooms. I'm going to try and pop in. It's really exciting to see who's all on the call and to just be involved in this community. So we're going to go in here for a few minutes and then pop back out. I'll send you a warning when we're coming back together. But a big thank you again to all of our presenters. And thank you, Catherine, especially. All right, here we go. I'm going to open the rooms, and it's just a chance for you to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what you are working on within your organization personally, and the things that you've been inspired by on the call as well. So here we go. You'll be asked to join a room. Go ahead and share. Cassie, it's just going to be you and me in the end. Tom, are you there? I'm just shuffling people into breakout rooms like nobody's business.